Hello, my internet friends. Rigel here. Welcome to the Rigel Show. We are coming to you live from my Earth Dome here in Austin, Texas, also known as my mystical driftwood fort on the sandy beach of the cosmic Navel. It's a beautiful place where song runs through all of reality. See, that's just what's bubbling up right now. This space is a playful Theotokian riparian zone that seeks to integrate traditional values, modern values, progressive postmodern values, and that which is emerging on the horizon of the evolution of culture and consciousness. Postmodern values. And if you're out there, say a little hello in the chat so I can see who you are. This is a place where opposites kiss, okay? Proper with the improper, order with disorder, created with uncreated. This new emerging worldview that I'm talking about, people are trying to scratch out what this is in words, in their, these limited symbols that we have to work with. I hear metamodernism, metagelical, belong apocalypse. Okay, that's a new one that I feel like is exploding onto the scene, if you will. Developmental philosophy, integral theory, spiral dynamics, meta-naissance. Do you have something to offer this new defining process that we're all living through? Maybe it's a regression, okay? Maybe that's what's happening. Okay, so enough of the kind of setting the tone for this space. I am going to enter the cosmic navel today by playing a song, okay? I'm not going to do my improvisational jazz thing. Cody, what's happening, my friend? Good to see you out there. Oh, and hey, by the way, if you want to get on my email reminder, I send out a little email like the day of or a few days before. If you want to get on that little list, I'm dropping a link here in the comments, and you can sign up for that. So you get the emails. Feel free to drop in here with me while I'm playing, or drop in when I'm done. Okay, so I'm going to play a little tune. This is a song that my therapist recommended I write. And I tried to write it, and sometimes I struggle with lyrics. I tend to get preachy or dark or sarcastic, and it just comes out wrong. Every once in a while, I'll have something that really hits it good. But I sent the idea to my friend Joe Thompson, who is a great lyricist, and we've done a lot of collaborations together. And he sent back lyrics for me to set to music. So I put this to music. Oh, my therapist was like, I want you to write a waltz about forgiving yourself. Okay. So let me just make sure that my keyboard is working, because last week I tried playing something and I went back and listened, and I had forgotten to turn off echo cancellation. Ugh. Okay, so let me see here real quick. Here we go. Okay, I think everything's working. So bear with me. This one's called Forgive Your Mistakes. Oh no, now I'm hearing an echo. Why is that? Check. What? I wasn't hearing an echo, and now I am. Man, that's going to be super annoying. let's see if I can change my audio settings real quick. Check. Nope. Check. All right. Well, here we go with the echo. What's up, Ron? When you arrive in this world, you are told that life's a test, get it right, and so it goes. Every day you go for gold, win the fight. But the hard truth is sometimes you will fail. You will draw the wrong card, you won't fill out the straight. You will sing the wrong words, come in late. How will you cope? Will you beat yourself up, act like life is a joke? Or bleed yourself dry doing coke? The hardest thing you will find is be kind, heart and mind to yourself as you would to your child. You've got what it takes. For God's sake, just forgive your mistakes. Move ahead with the rest of your life. Just a little forgiveness and kindness, self-compassion and hope are no less than what we all deserve. Just a little forgiveness and kindness, compassion and hope are no less than what we all deserve. All right. Nice to see Sherry out there and Ron. And, oh yeah, Ron, I'm actually an old black guitarist and my name is Blind Lemon Pledge. Dude, Ron, we need to get you on here. So the session is now open for y'all to come in here, share a little something. Just be with me, you know, because here's the thing. I don't monologue like some of our TLC, talkers. You know who you are out there. Boy, I'm getting a really annoying echo. Are you guys hearing an echo or is that just me? Feel free to say that, say something. I dropped a link in at the very top. It should be pinned to the top. So if you would like to join me in here, I'd love to have you on. Oh, here we go. Mega Ron.
How's it going, bud?
Pretty darn good. How you doing?
I just got on lunch break, so I can I can come in here and jabberjaw
Yeah.
for a few minutes. So
Please.
it was great meeting you in person, and The one thing I have to say is for you tall guys, put the camera much lower because you actually look like this to us people, and I actually should have the camera about this high.
But Ron, I'm kind of like a delicate little flower inside. So
I can say that. Yeah.
I'm a walking paradox, Ron. But it was
No,
lovely
your
meeting you as
camera
well.
angle. No, your camera angle. All kidding aside, it does look good, and it's standard protocol. It should be about like right here. But if I get
Yeah.
it that close, I feel like my eyes are crossed. Hi, Shelly.
Hey Sherry,
Hi.
good to see you guys.
Yeah.
What's bubbling up for you? Since Ron has to check out probably on the sooner side. Ron,
Yeah.
what's going on in your life? What's bubbling up? What do you want to bring to the
I'm seriously thinking about going to the Southeastuary
Oh,
coming up.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I had a great time at Chicago, and it was. I had one of the strongest prayer times in Chicago when everyone is out of the sanctuary,
Hmm.
and I skipped an estuary, and the best I can describe is I hooked into a whale uh, when I was praying, and
Cool.
so I'm trying to figure out. I'll probably go to south southeastuary. I'm trying to figure this out spiritually for me. Like I know it's a net good, and I guess I'm just walking it out in a like even now I'm live processing and it just feels good, and I'm wondering where where this leads, and if it's just friendship and fun and good food, you know what? Okie dokie. Like
Mhm.
that's a
Ain't
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that, Ron.
mm-mm, no. Mm-mm. Except when you meet tall people and you go, oh my gosh, you're tall. And Grim Grizz too.
Yeah.
He's tall. He's not short. Anyhow,
Well,
so that's what's on my mind.
do you mind my asking where
Mm-hmm.
I was maybe detecting like a little bit of resistance or something in relation to what all this is? Do you mind, is
No,
that happening? Or are you just kind of like trying to figure
resistance,
it out?
resistance, no. There's you want diversity, you want real diversity. Go to one of these meetings, and I push back. No, I think what it is I'm learning how to be the charismatic dude with atheists.
Hmm.
I and not and see that we can get along, and that so that I don't shortchange my own theology,
Mm.
but then in the same moment I'm able to maybe share and experience what other people are doing in their own life and maybe see value in that and talk across or through silos.
I love that. Talk through
So
silos. Man, brother, you're preaching my love language.
mm. And then you just
Cody,
got, I got, yep, so anyhow.
go for it. Well, I want to
No,
just
that was it.
let Cody say a little something. Hey, Cody,
Sure.
nice to see you back here.
Hey,
Second time,
Mhm.
you're basically a regular.
right. Yeah, no, good to be back. Hopefully my phone has a bad habit of overheating, so if I cut off abruptly, that's why. That's what happened to me last time. I got to get a new one. I really like your song, man.
Oh,
Forgiveness has been quite the topic in my own personal men's group. We've been talking about it quite a bit. So I want to know where that stirred up from in you to write that.
yeah. Boy, that's a really good question because I actually didn't write the lyrics. I don't know if you caught the first intro to it, but I tried to write the lyrics. I think I was it was after a therapy session. I mean, partially why I was and am in therapy is to learn how to be in a relationship with the people that I love, especially my wife. And so I think part of that process for me, and I can't think of specifically what was going on at the time, but part of my like process of forgiving other people is also forgiving myself. Like the two are just so inextricably connected.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like when I do that, I mean, what it allows other people to have the same kind of process. I don't know. I've been in 12-step groups before, and there's something that happens in a 12-step room where people are sharing and the shares are just kind of like ho hum. No one's really being vulnerable. No one's being on it. You know, everyone's kind of like dancing around the issue, whatever. I mean, this is just my experience. And then one person will get really real and share something really difficult. And then it kind of gives everyone permission in the room, and it like a bomb goes off and everyone starts sharing, and it's just like this big therapeutic catharsis. Mm. So what I'm trying to say is like when I do my work, it just kind of lays the groundwork for other people in my life to kind of do that type of work as well and not feel like it's coming at them sideways. I mean, I can't force people to do the work, you know.
You know, that reminds me of when my sheep are in the field and they see something out of place. It could be just a bush that they never noticed, or, you know, one time I threw a soccer ball in. That was fun. And they were all like, you know, all in a line, just standing there staring at it. And then all of a sudden one will just go, tick, 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 you know, and everyone goes to see what's going to happen to him, you know? And then he gets up the gumption and he touches the ball with his nose and jumps back, and they all go. And then, yeah, within seconds, they're all moving towards the ball.
Wow.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Man, Sherry, you have a little farm anecdote for everything. It's amazing how connected it is.
Well, it's because it's reality. That's reality,
yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like that's just the way it is. Like we've extricated ourselves so far from nature that we wouldn't see this stuff if it slapped us in the face. You know, like it's really sad to me.
Yeah.
It's like I was thinking about when Dan asked last time about, well, you know, how do you know God when you're living alone in the woods? And I'm just like, oh my God. I don't know what to say to that, you know, like I honestly, and I'm not, you know, trying to denigrate anybody, but I hear it a lot, right? I mean, I remember when I was homeschooling my kids, people would say they're not socialized. I'm like, oh my God, you know, sit at a table with a bunch of homeschooled kids and a bunch of adults and all different age groups. And they don't go off in a room and look at TikTok videos. They hang out at the table and they ask questions, and they're so socialized. It's insane. Mm-hmm. They're more socialized than all these kids that are, you know, capsuled off in their peer groups all day long in school. Yeah. I don't think kids are not. How do kids grow and learn if they're stuck in with a bunch of other kids who would like to grow and learn? Nobody's there yet, right? So they're all looking at each other going, is this it? It's kind of depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't have a role model.
Yeah, it's hard to do in the city. It's hard to do.
Well, I mean, church is the one place where it can happen. where kids are exposed to all different age groups, right? Elders and so on.
Yeah.
And we call that communion, which is a sacrament. So I don't know. Like, yeah, it doesn't matter where you are, it can happen.
Well, something kind of along these lines is a story I wanted to tell of something that happened 2 days ago, which relates to parenting. Well, let's just see what it relates to, because this is a little bit of a public confession that could have consequences. Okay, this could have like the law knocking at my door. So you all know, or some of you know, that I am a budding metal artist, which means I have become a full-blown vulture. Like every alleyway, everything that I pass by that might have like a scrap of metal, I'm like pulling over and throwing in the back of my truck. And so we're driving down the road, dropping off one of my son's friends. They're both in the car, and I see a sign that has been knocked over, a stop sign with some. It has like an intersection of streets at the top. So you have two green street labels and then a big stop sign. And I was like, ooh, I want to come back over and then maybe snag that. And so I drop off the friend. We come back, and my son's like, Papa, where are you going? And I'm like, I saw some metal. I got to go get it. And he's like, no, I'm tired. I'm like, I have a headache. Like everything that possibly could bubble up is like bubbling up. And I'm like, no, we're doing this. And I stop, and sure enough, it's like, it's laying there on the ground, just litter. And this is my rationalization. So, I can rationalize just about anything. And man, traffic signs are a lot bigger than you think. Like they look just kind of normal size when you're driving up to them, but they're actually pretty hefty. And so I get this thing in the back of my truck, and my truck has this lid on it that you can kind of like, wrench down, and, it covers things, keeps them from getting wet,
Yeah.
And I put it in, and I'm kind of like shifting it around, trying to get it in place so it'll kind of stay. And the anchor point to the lid pops off. So now the only thing that's holding the lid together are these two little like compression arms that keep up like a hood or something like that. And so it's kind of like floating on top of this sign. And I'm like, I have just, like, at this point, maybe I should have just taken it out. And I know knockdown traffic signs are not okay. Wait, Ron, I'm not done with the story. No finger wagging yet. I'm not done with the story. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. I get some straps and bungee cords. I basically get everything in place enough for me to kind of like creep back onto the access road of the highway and get to our house, which is like 10 minutes away. And my son is scolding me because I'm like explaining that this may be a gray area in the law. Like technically, if it's not attached with a screw or a nail, it's not part of the property. But I'm a rationalization machine. But this is kind of a this is a mega load because it's a particularly popular street, well-known street in the Austin area. So anyways, I get it back home, and, we didn't cause an accident, which was definitely a possibility. But I'm thinking about this situation where I could have just done the right thing and just left it where it was and not even messed with all this. But when I was growing up, like my parents slightly traumatized me with the adventures that we went on. You know, and there was like real danger, I feel like, because we were going across choppy weather in a boat that wasn't really meant for that kind of chop. And, you know, I don't really have that level of adventureness built into our lives here. But I do have like a willingness to just bend on the gray areas of the law. And I'm just curious if you all have any, you know, there's this like balance between risk and safety, lawlessness and being an upstanding citizen, and doing that all like in front of your child, and kind of exposing him to a little bit of the gray area creativity of life. And I'm wondering if you all have any stories or thoughts on this dance between light and dark.
I have one.
Yeah, go for it, Cody.
And it was actually really recent. So I live here in the Pacific Northwest. We went out to unincorporated territory in Southeast Oregon for some vacation time. When we got there, there was present wildfires high upon the hills, and this is in high desert area. So we get there, we see the flames, helicopters, airplanes, dropping the FOSS check, all that kind of stuff, taking care of business. Okay, well, it's not done in totality until the Bureau of Land Management says it's done. So they put signs everywhere. We're there for vacation. There's lots of areas where we can go down to the river, to the creeks in the area. It's kind of part of the reason why we went there, is because it's just big open country and lots of natural fun to have. Well, BLM put up all their signage saying there's wildfires. And I had a family member who was like, that doesn't mean anything out here. I've lived out here all my life. When I was a kid, it's fine to cross the barriers that they put up. It's fine to ignore the signs, all that stuff. And I'm literally the only person in a trio of families that are together who is saying, I'm not going to do that. And my kids are right here. And I have clearly made it known that there's a sign, that there's, you know, action that BLM can take, as well as the local sheriff's office and all that kind of stuff if we're trespassing. And the reason they did it is because they're still getting, they're still dipping into the water for the helicopters. So if the helicopter needs to come and get the water and extract it so that they can carry it up, you know, it's part of the reason why they have it closed off. The point is that, you know, I have felt very pressured in a situation to go with the flow, but I felt it was really important for my kids to see, like in that particular instance, the wisdom here is to communicate, take the time, slow down, call the BLM office or the sheriff's office and, you know, see what they have to say. Is there any flexibility here? And we did that, and they said, no, please do not go in that area. The helicopters are not done. And throughout that entire week, they still did dips in the river in one of the access points that we were trying to go in. Like, and then everybody was like, oh yeah, that was the right call. But it didn't feel good to be the only person who, you know, the person who is pressured to just, you know, let it go, be free, be adventurous. Like, yeah, there's some inherent risk here, but it, you know, I guess I'm just sort of relating it to what you're saying is this is a recent experience. There was pressure. I probably wouldn't have even done it if my kids weren't there, but because they were there, I felt like the risk was greater to, you know, sort of exercise my freedom and willingness to cross barriers. And it's just like, okay, well, there's a time and a place for that. And I don't feel like it's this time. I don't feel like it's this place.
Yeah.
But I was certainly alone in my petition and my protesting. Like, this is probably not like a real moral issue, but for my kids, they're going to see it. And if dad is the only one who questions it, maybe he's questioning it for a reason. Maybe I should question something later. Just because everybody else is doing it, just because there's a consensus, doesn't mean it's right. And I want them to have this. I want them to have the courage to step into a situation and look dumb and look obstinate if there is a conviction for them to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful story. And just modeling for your children. Way to go. Way to go, Dad. That's good stuff.
And I could have been totally wrong. It may have been totally fine. And the people in charge would have said, yeah, we don't care. And then I would have just looked like a fool for even suggesting the thought that we go back, miles away to our Airbnb to make a phone call, because there's no reception out there. So we had to trek all the way back. It was very inconvenient. Everybody was kind of upset by it. Some people were even, refusing to go with us to check it out. But then everybody started coming back slowly because we hadn't returned yet. We were still waiting on calls to be, we were still waiting on callbacks to receive information because they were checking with BLM and all that kind of stuff. And anyways, that's the story. It's not a fun position to be put in, but I think it would be good it's good for us to recognize times where we have to exercise wisdom over all things in order to make the right calls. And if we fail at doing so, then that's okay too. I wasn't going to go brood and slump against a wall for the rest of the afternoon if I didn't make the fun call, and whatever the consequence may be, I was willing to endure it. And I just hope that my kids see that and they go, you know what? Sometimes that's what you have to do. Sometimes, and in even more tragic circumstances that happens, like, reading Bonhoeffer very recently, he's put in a very difficult situation where he goes back to Germany to be with, the people who are suffering. And he's been painted as, a co-conspirator, in recent media more than he has been, this co-suffering pastor for the people that he was with over there. And, we can make historical observations about him, but I don't know. What would we have done? What would you do if you were in that situation? Would you stand by the conviction that there are other people who desperately need comfort in impossible tragedy, or do we stick with our sort of preservationalist mindset that it's better for us to stay safe so that we can, help others be safe, or, we can take care of things on our home front? It's just there's a difference between when you sort of analyze it from the outside and then when you're on the inside of it, and it just becomes sometimes in really extreme circumstances, like for Bonhoeffer, it becomes impossibly tragic. But it's really easy for us sometimes to stand outside of that and say, well, he could have done this or he could have done that. It's all retrospect and hindsight at that point. And I think that that's useless, and it doesn't teach us anything if we try to look at it from that angle.
What I'm thinking about when I'm listening, I have to go soon, but is compliance. This is kind of about compliance, right? Actually, the first thing that came to my mind was can't. You can't lie. You can't. Like he was so rigidly fixed on what he would call, perhaps, I haven't read him. I tried, but he made me mad. on what's right, what's correct, what's good in his opinion. And here's the thing: the reason he's so discussed is because he isn't wrong. But this is another thing that I love about lives of the saints, because they didn't comply, and that's why many of them were martyred, right? And I actually think that a lot of the spirit that we're in right now is a spirit of safetyism, which forces people to become compliant because it thrives, like it feeds on fear, right? And projecting yourself out into the future. So, but like Cody said, all these decisions require some kind of wisdom and discernment, and we're not always going to make the right choice. But I think
Can you say more about how it feeds on fear?
Safetyism feeds on fear,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like you're not willing to risk anything. So, you're just trying to stay safe. I heard, I think it was Camille Paglia talking about bumper pads in babies' cribs so they don't bump their heads, And this is a long time ago. Like, I think those started in like the 70s. You could buy these plastic bumper pads for your kid's crib. And then I had my grandson and my son and his wife here for Christmas one year, and he was just learning how to stand up and hold himself on things. And at that point, he would let go because, he had never fallen. He had never fallen. He was always carried, right? And he would just let go because he'd get distracted and then fall down and hit his head. And my daughter-in-law said to me, "Well, I guess it's almost time for a helmet." And she was kidding. But she was not kidding, because a lot of her work colleagues were doing that. They were putting helmets on their babies at that stage. And so what the babies learned was nothing. They never learned not to fall. So Jonah fell a few times, hit his head, cried. She felt terrible because she looked away for 2 seconds. But then he would hold on to something and then he'd go like this and grab it again. Right? And so he was learning that he could fall. And when he learns that he can fall, he holds on tighter and he pays more attention, and all these other things, they kind of compound as they go along. So I personally I don't break the law, like just because I don't think I have to abide by the law. But there are some things, like recently, as an example, they're digging ditches on our highway, and they've got this big ditch digging truck, and then they got a dump truck that they're putting the dirt into, right? And then the dump trucks get on the road and they drive to a spot, dump it, come back, line up. And they've been doing this for 25. I've been living here for 25 years. They've been digging ditches, and they usually had some pylons around the trucks. And as they went down the highway, they moved the pylons, and they had a guy with a sign that said slow, that was it. And you went around. Now, this year, they had, you had to slow down to 70, then 70 kilometers an hour. Then you had to slow down to 50. Then you had to stop at an automated arm that came down with a red light. Then you had to wait till, I think their other light for this operation was like 4 or 5 kilometers down the road. And they had a pilot car that would drive everybody along, right? Past this 2 trucks. Most of the highway was empty, except 2 trucks were digging a ditch. Okay. And, I had to wait there once like 20 minutes till I could pass these 2 trucks, where every year before that I went around them and they had pylons there, and it was just like overblown safetyism. And I said to my husband, I said, why this is? It's not the guys doing the work that think that what they're doing is dangerous or they're going to accidentally kill somebody, because they never have, and they've been doing it forever. It's the insurance companies. They don't want to pay anybody, so they legislate And they've really, the insurance company, I've ranted about this briefly before, but the insurance companies have really introduced safetyism, and for good reason. Helmets for children, seatbelts for people, all that. Car seats, save lives, yes. But that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to save lives. They're trying to save money. Okay. So now we're at Mammon.
Come on, Sherry. Preach it.
So yeah, if a cop pulled me over because he saw the stop sign sticking out of my truck, I would have told him, look, I found him dead on the road and I'm going to resuscitate him.
I love that. I love that.
I'm going to give him a new life.
Yeah.
Believe me.
I like your just keying in on this idea of safetyism and complianceism. And I, like, while you're talking, I'm thinking about Cody's situation and how like safetyism and complianceism comes at us at different levels. Like in his situation, there was a safetyism and complianceism that was created out of the collective that was right around him to, cross the line and to pursue what your idea of goodness, truth, and beauty is in that moment of pressure. That takes like a lot of courage to break away from the consensus of a group. I have I just want people to like me mostly. And so I'm very good at just kind of going with the flow. And thankfully I've had a little bit of therapy to help me and just friendship, honest friends. But yeah, I think having an awareness of where the compliance, doing something for the sake of doing it or doing something for the sake of goodness, truth, and beauty is like where that edge
Well, I
is.
think too, like I just get the sense that Cody knows his children and they're watching, and there's something about this situation that requires a certain position to be held for him. And so he might not be doing it because he thinks he's going to die if he crosses the tape. He's doing it for a totally different reason. And that's what discernment is about, right? So, yeah. Yeah,
so there's this, I've been listening to David Bentley Hart recently, and one of the things that I has been sitting with me is this idea. He says that freedom isn't about making choices, it's about knowing what you're choosing. And this freedom that Christ has is he knows what he's choosing. He knows what he's doing. And he even says that he's only doing what he sees the Father doing. He knows it. He knows exactly what is in front of him. And where Hart makes this sort of analogy like even more vivid is in this analogy of an old folk tale that I'm going to paraphrase here, that there was this soldier or servant who fell in love with the king's daughter. The king found out and he put the servant or soldier in the Colosseum. Behind one door is a hungry, famished lion. Behind the other door is the princess. Now, is it a choice? Is he actually free to make a choice here because he doesn't know what's behind the door? I would say no. He's not free except for to make a choice and to open a door, right? That's the only thing he's free to do. But if he knows what's behind the door and he only chooses the door with the princess because he knows what he's choosing, is he less free because he doesn't have more choice to make? And that's where Hart draws this whole the freedom of the real freedom, free will, is not about making choices, but knowing what you're choosing. And that's been sitting with me. And as I reflect on that story, I know what I was choosing. I was choosing my kids at the moment. I wasn't choosing anything else.
Right.
And I was willing to die on the hill to choose my kids, whether or not I looked like a very prude, rules compliant man at the time, or if it worked out in my favor. It didn't really matter to me. And the story that I was thinking about the inverse. You know, if the man or the servant was, if he opened the door with the princess, but then that door opened the door with the lion, and they're both killed, is he less free because he would choose the door of the lion to save his beloved? No, he knows what he's choosing. So I just wanted to share that I've been really resonating with this idea that, you know, even in line with what the song we heard at the beginning, forgiveness is knowing what you're choosing, and in God's perspective, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's forgiving. Mm-hmm. And there's no choice to make for God. It's knowing fully well that he's choosing his beloved in us.
You know, just to say, Cody, I've been in situations like that where I feel like, that the kids are watching, and I have to make a decision. And both things are valid to me. Like let's use your example, not crossing the line and crossing the line. Both of those are valid. I've often looked at my children and said, what do you think we should do? Because oftentimes they've surprised me. Like I had a very difficult, well, I can just say it. My husband and I were in the middle of trying to decide whether or not to be together, and we were going to become separated. And well, we did actually. I made it clear that's what we were doing, and then we were separated. And at one point, I just started to feel so bad about everything, the kids, him, everything, that I caved. I said, okay, never mind, kind of thing. Let's just forget it. And my kids asked if they could speak to me privately. They were what? 6, 7, 9, and 13, 14. And they said, if you do that, nothing will change. Okay. And I was just like, I felt like falling at their feet, okay? Because I was trying to choose for them at the moment when I decided not to do it, right? Wow. And they said, if you do that, nothing will change, Mom. Ugh. And I took their advice. It wasn't easy. Let me tell you, because essentially I was taking the easy path. Okay, let's just, still these waters so we don't have to fight the current and all the rest of it, and no. So that's just a suggestion, Cody, because here's the thing. As observers, and that's what children are, they're observers. They often have way more wisdom than we do because we're stuck in it. We're in the forest, right? In the trees, right? We can't see the forest. And they've been watching. So you don't have to take their advice.
Man, Sherry, I'm going to take that as a little parenting nugget. That's such a beautiful way to build agency too with your children.
Right. Yeah.
Because, when they're really little, my wife and I, we would intentionally give choices for every single thing, like whether it's ketchup or mustard, even though we know they're not going to choose mustard, but even giving them a choice starts to build that sense of agency and like they're part of it. Yeah. But actually giving them a say in a bigger situation like that.
I mean, we had another example, really harsh example. We had 2 cats that got pregnant. And then all of a sudden we had 13 cats. Okay. And we were in the middle of nowhere. So guess what? You're going to have to kill some cats, right? So one of the cats was young and she was afraid of her kittens and they were starving and she was freaking out. She was weird. And my 6-year-old came up to me and she goes, Mom, I have a plan. And I never said, what are we going to do? I was just looking after it. I was trying to feed the kittens and I was trying to introduce her to the kittens. And I wasn't panicking. I was just dealing with it. But she was watching and she knew that this was not going to be a good thing in the end. too many cats and too much work, right, on top of everything else. And she came up to me and she goes, Mom, listen, because my husband was working on the goat barn. She goes, Dad, I'm going to go down and talk to Daddy. And I'm going to tell him, or no, was it the other way around? I was at the goat barn. He was working on the house. And that's where the cats were. And she comes down to me and she says, Mom, I'm going to go talk to Daddy. And I have a plan. I think that what he should do is he should kill Sunshine and all her kittens. And then we can keep Cheerio and find homes for her kittens. And I looked at her because I didn't want to make any of these choices. And I looked at her and I said, really, you think that? She goes, yeah. I said, okay. She goes, so I'm going to go and talk to Daddy. You stay here. I'll be right back. She was 6.
God.
She goes up there and she talks to him and she comes back down and she goes, okay, he's going to kill Sunshine and those kittens. We'll wait here, Mom. Okay. I said, okay. And then my poor husband had to go do the thing, you know? And that just blew me away. And that was within the first 7 months of moving from suburbia to the woods. But this child had already observed that when things like this happen, something has to give. Mm-hmm. Okay. She'd already made that observation. Right?
Yeah. So valuable. Wow.
And just to top it off, okay, when it comes to choosing things that are difficult. So I had a neighbor whose cat also got pregnant. Okay. Because some guy knew that we had all the white folks had females only because we couldn't get neuter and spays done. And everyone promised never to have a male. So that way we didn't have kittens, right? And then some guy knowingly dropped a tomcat into the neighborhood. And so anyway, she ended up with kittens. So she goes, Sherry, do you want to come for coffee? And I said, sure. So I went to visit her and we're sitting talking and visiting. And then all of a sudden she goes, I'll be right back. And she comes out with an armload of kittens. And she goes, I have to kill some of these. Which ones? Will you choose the ones I have to kill? She was divorced. So she lived alone. And I looked at her and I said, is this why you invited me for coffee? She goes, yeah. I said, I am not choosing. These are your cats and you choose. I'm not doing that for you, Lynn. Because that's the worst thing to do. Okay?
Having to kill kittens. This needs to be a chapter in your book, Sherry. This needs to be a chapter in your book.
She picked them, threw them in a burlap sack in front of me, went out on the porch with a shovel.
Oh my God. Whoa.
And then came in and tossed them into the wood stove. And then we finished our coffee.
Oh my gosh.
This is what separates the city folk from the farm folk.
It is.
We have very little exposure to this, and I promise the shock in our faces, that does not mean we are being judgmental, but we are shocked.
Yes. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I know. And I was wondering, are those kittens actually dead when she threw them in the wood stove? But I thought, well, too late.
Well, I'm not shocked. I have a story, but I want to welcome Sam to the stage. Sam, so good to see you.
Yeah, so good
to be seen.
Oh my gosh, what's kind of bubbling up for you, Sam?
Well, y'all were talking about freedom, and I just started reading The Meaning of the Creative Act by Nikolai
Rigel.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it was a corner person who surfaced this for me, and
I haven't read any of his stuff yet, but I'm so dying to do it.
It's lovely. I'm just in like the intro right now, the foreword. But he talks all about I'll try and do my interpretation of it because I could read some things, but it's harder to I'll just synthesize. I'll do my best. He talks about basically creativity is the means by which we express freedom. Like you can choose one thing or another, and it's sort of how you walk through a world of choice is like you actually have to transform something into something else, and then you're free to do that. Like, you're free. And I was thinking about it in terms of like essentially like from God's cosmic, eternal love overflowing in creation for the world. Like, he didn't create us out of like need, but out of free choice. Like, he was free to create us, and he desired to, and he created us with that same level of agency. And what I've come to understand and appreciate more in my adult years is the radical agency that God is working with in his created order, even to the point of like all throughout the stories of the Old Testaments, the fathers, the patriarchs, like these things are like, how does God interact with beings who are just so free? It's like Noah and that whole thing. It's like, man, they were free and they just went downhill fast. And I was especially thinking about it then in the level of like my wife's free choice to accept us having another child, because we're about to have another child here in like a month,
wow,
or 2 weeks basically.
cool.
Yeah, and there was a point in our marriage, he's out. So that's
He said his phone overheats sometimes.
His phone overheats when the conversation gets spicy.
spicy.
Cody, glad you're here, buddy.
No, but just this idea of like, it was a very deeply moving point for me when my wife said, we have a 4-year-old and now we'll have another one. And 4-year gap between the next kid is not like, we obviously had some agency of our own to participate in that. And I'm from a big family. I'm from a family that says like, I'd love to have as many kids as possible, basically, as the Lord would allow. And so we had to negotiate that in our own marriage. But the moment she said, let's go for it, even in the midst of what I was, I went through an 11-month period of being totally underemployed. Like, she said, by faith, I'm going to accept, like, I'm going to do this, even though I know I want to, bring a new child into the world, even though we're not like in a place of financial like stability right now, which was huge for her. And it was deeply moving. But this idea of like, because of the creative agency, the willingness to receive, essentially, let it be done to me according to thy will. She now literally is like she has participated in bringing being into the world. And that's what the point in the book makes. He says like, freedom precedes being, essentially. Like, freedom is the thing that makes a space for being to then enter into. So like, if we didn't have freedom, if God didn't give us that gift of freedom, for instance, there wouldn't be the possibility of even becoming actual beings at all. Like, we would inevitably just be like automatons or, robots or whatever, which is the difference between a robot and a child. It's like, this is a real being. Like, there's real agency. There's some nights, I remember one night specifically, I looked at my daughter, she was lying in bed, and I thought, in a decade, she could end my life. You could say that physically, but even like spiritually, like emotionally, she could just wreck me, in all kinds of ways. And or she could be a lovely, like, she could follow the way of folly or the way of wisdom, but like, she's going to have so much agency. And like the nurturing, creative love that says, I'm going to, like the womb, create a space that allows for that being to come into being because of like just radical acceptance of who they are, actually allows them to then transcend that state of like, we talked about all this before, but it was just like bringing in the creativity piece was like fascinating for me, because now like I think about my work as like what I'm trying to do, like what we're trying to do here, I feel like in the Rigel space is we're trying to be creative because we're actually trying to make something different in the world. Like, we're trying to actually instantiate a new order in the world where there was not a thing before, there is a thing now, and that thing has participated in the beauty of what exists in the world in reality. So I'll just stop there.
Yeah, I have to go now, but I just was thinking, like, that was really great, Sam, because like, how it talks about the rock that you either come up against and are smashed into pieces, or it comes down on you and breaks you into pieces? I always thought that was so interesting. It's like, oh, crap, there's no really happy ending to this story. And that rock to me is what is. It's reality, and it's being. It's that which we participate in. right? It's the thing that we say, yes, let it be unto me too. And so the only time that, that we're not smashing up against it or it's crashing down on us is when we are participating with it. And the other thing that came to my mind was, when Jesus goes to the garden and gets arrested, Judas betrays him. But Judas, we talked about this with Jeremy, and I talked about this, and I've been thinking about it more. Judas was not betraying Christ because he wanted to betray Christ. He thought that if he could provoke something, then the Messiah would, take over. There would be some kind of like radical thing that would happen. Excuse me. And Jesus actually said at one point that they should bring their swords. Right. So there's this tension, this, what do you call that? Like, everybody's like hopped up, right? What's going to happen here? And they get there with all this expectation and nothing that they expect happens. And I said to Jeremy in the last thing, I said, it's like life lessons, when you're walking with God, what you learn is you get right up to the edge of something like unemployment, Sam, right? In faith, in participation, like, so your wife has said yes, and you've said yes. And in spite of all the things, and you get right up to the cliff edge, and then all of a sudden everything changes, and it's never that thing that you expect it would be. Right. Mm-hmm. So and I personally, my own experience with God has always been that way. I used to try to preemptively, lay the foundation for the next thing that's coming. And, I very quickly learned that I just have to expectantly hope. That's all I can do, because I know God's got me, right? So it's an adventure. It's always an adventure.
Right.
That's the thing. Right. You're on an adventure.
Yeah. And what was so beautiful for my wife, she experienced that sense of like nothing changed. It was like 6 months later and nothing had changed. She was like, I thought I did this in faith, and I was like accepting that like God is in control and everything will be okay. And like nothing had changed. Nothing changed until my buddy went to the St. John of San Francisco and prayed at his relics for me to get work. And I went a week later to being massively overemployed. And it was like, I just am so grateful for that adventure. I kept telling you, like, I'm very much the Lord's got it, he's got it, let's just roll with this. And I think dispositional more than anything, like virtuous in me. But it was good, I think, for us to both experience that and go through it. And tomorrow there'll be a new like beyond the edge of what we can see, beyond what our current understanding is, that we'll have to step into in faith and say like, oh, I trust that this will be just fine.
Well, I have to sign off, guys. Sorry.
Sherry, so good to see
you.
Sherry.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Cody, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to connect the thread with what Sherry had said about Judas. And it made me think of I was listening to a teaching on opening the scripture by Father John Bear. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with him, but
big fan.
Yeah.
You're dropping all the names: David Bentley Hart, John Bear. I'm waiting for Jordan Daniel Wood.
Daniel Wood, Chris Green, all those guys. Yeah.
Rob Bell.
Rob Bell, the progenitor to all that we know as far as our unconventional thinking, right?
Oh my God, yes.
So I want to connect that thread that it's in Matthew 16, John Bear was talking about, it's who is the first person who confesses Christ as Messiah and Lord. And in Matthew 16, it's Peter. But just a few verses later, Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." And for what? And John Bear is provoking this, why is Peter, who just a few moments ago confessed that Jesus is Messiah and the Christ, that now he is Satan being named here. And it's what Jerry was talking about. Judas is not betraying Jesus just because he wants to betray Jesus. He's betraying Jesus because he's trying to provoke something to usher in what he thinks ought to happen in regards to how the Messiah should act, how God should act, for all that he knew and all of his own theology and all of the things that belong to him, his idea of who God is. And the same happened for Peter, that Peter wanted to stop Jesus from going to his death, because Jesus says, now I am going to suffer. And Peter says, surely not, Lord. And he takes him aside and it says, surely not. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. So you have this picture of, on one side, there's Peter, who betrays Jesus, and denies Jesus. But his error, his greatest visible error in Scripture is that he confesses Jesus as Lord. He knows it. And in knowing that, he also tries to guide Jesus on how to become Lord, how to actually activate this reality of being Messiah. And he does it by trying to prevent him from going to the cross. Judas does the same thing. He knows Jesus is Lord. He knows Jesus is Messiah, but he wants to accelerate his idea of how the Messiah should act. That's my own thread that I'm pulling in connection with what Bear was saying about Peter and what Sherry said. So I don't know if you guys have thoughts about that, but to me that's where we go incredibly wrong, is trying to actualize and usher and that's something that happens in evangelicalism. That's my background in many degrees of non-denominational spaces, and also having some roots in a little bit of like that middle liturgy space in Methodism. That all that those traditions have taught me is that those traditions have ideas about God, and the danger is trying to make God this molded creature, putting God in the box in order for him to do our will. That was the lesson that's supposed to be learned between Peter and Judas, is that there is no way except for to get behind Jesus and be his follower.
Yeah, there is a fractal process bomb going off in my mind and heart right now. Let me just connect like a few things and see what happens. So, like, as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about, Sam, I have to buy this book now. Sorry. I'm just going to have to buy it. But I'm thinking, like, the first thing I'm thinking of is like, okay, we take the grapes and the wheat and we transform it, through creative process into wine and bread, and then offer it back up. At Midwestuary, I'm getting tingles thinking about this. At Midwestuary, God brings someone into my life that I am challenged to love and like. And say a little prayer, and then shit changes. Transformation. Like there's this creative connection that happens, and it's like that becomes like this offering. And this is also how the creative process works for me. Like particularly, like Sam, that insight about kind of moving from just thinking you're kind of like taking that which is from above and just turning it into something tangible or something, but just transforming from one thing to another, I think acknowledges this part of creativity where, like, we don't start with a blank slate. We have all of this stuff that's been like feeding us in our lives, chord progressions that we know, that piece of scrap metal that I ran across that has like a story behind it now, like that becomes this, transformation process that, it gets offered up as a piece of art or a solution to something. Anyways, I'm just kind of riffing. I'm gonna have to go back and like listen to this and read that book now.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I have so much more to riff on as well, but I wanted to share. I thought of a joke yesterday that you might appreciate. It's sort of it's just silly. I play two instruments. Drumming is my forte, and piano is my piano. It's really silly, but
Lovely, Sam.
thank you. So I think what you're saying is absolutely correct in that we're sub-creators, right? We take what already exists and then turn it into something, and through that transformation, it becomes something else. I think I just want to like share more of this book because it's so good. But
yeah,
you were talking about putting God in a box, Cody, and like this idea of like, I think the meaning crisis is sort of like it's separation from the spiritual realm. It's earth alone without heaven, let's say. It's just material, all that there is, and like we're trying to find a way to connect back up to bring heaven and earth together. And in the book, he talks about this idea of this world. You know, he talks about this world being like a prison, basically. But he's also saying, he points to this antinomy between the prison of this world and like the reality that this world is also just the place where all of this beauty, mystical, spiritual reality like takes place. There's not like a second, like heaven on earth, you know, is the aim. You know, the new city coming down to earth. So he says, freedom from the world is the pathos of this book. There is an objective source of evil against which we must wage a heroic war. Then he says, over against this stands freedom in the spirit, life in divine love. He says, I confess an almost pantheistic monism. The world is divine in its very nature. Man is by his nature divine. The world process is self-revelation of divinity. It is taking place within divinity. God is immanent in the world and in man. The world and man are immanent in God. Everything which happens with man happens with God. There is no dualism of divine and extra divine nature, of God's absolute transcendence of the world and of man. And he's like, I'm very aware of the antinomy between like dualism and monism, and he's just like, I accept it. It's just part of reality. Basically, what Sherry says, it's just like part of reality. It's inevitable, like how things are. And so, in religious life, in the depth of the religious experience itself, is where you can experience the world to the fullest extent as completely apart from God and yet fully divine, as both falling away from divine reason and also having an immanent meaning in the process of the world's development. Like that's
development, that's also my love language.
Yes.
This is fractal process bombs going off over here.
Yeah. Like meaning, yeah. But like I can, even in this day that I live, there was a part of me living this day where I was like, nope, the world is just material. I just don't really experience it as holy. I'm not seeing the beauty of the divine in the world. And I'm sort of acting in a way that's sort of like concomitant with that feeling, lifestyle, whatever, nature. But then through prayer, like you mentioned, Rigel, this transformation occurs where I'm asking God to give me my daily bread. And that sustenance of the daily bread opens my eyes to see, oh, there is this living divine reality that I can walk in. And if I'm doing that, then there's actual beauty, transformation, and goodness that can come from above through me into the world if I submit to it and say, let thy will, not my will, but yours be done. And it's just very real and practical and day to day and like just weirdly normal, so
that's great, Sam. That picture that you just painted, it's a reminder, and I think this goes back to what I was saying about Judas and Peter, is neither one of them wanted the version of their idea of who God is, who the Messiah is, to be the suffering servant. This whole idea of we're trying to connect back up. Well, up has already come down, And it has come down in the child. It has come down in complete vulnerability and complete helplessness. And that itself is divine. And this is what the disciples had such a hard time with, is they couldn't wrap their head around this. We're still trying to wrap our head around this. And we have all kinds of systems around us that, we were talking about the preservationalist, safetyism with Sherry a few moments ago, where all that does is it reinforces this idea that we need to be protecting ourselves at all costs from all harm, because we fear it. We fear what will happen to us if we allow ourselves to be helpless and vulnerable. And especially, as when we rationalize it and we start to say, there is no rationality in suffering. There is no good that comes from suffering. There is no meaning that comes from suffering. But Jesus shows us that is exactly where goodness, meaning, and life come from, is in his suffering, in his way that he leads us. And that's exactly what Jesus calls out in Peter, is when he says, Satan, get behind me. This is what Satan does. Satan is the one who wants to, and probably, for as long as that particular, sphere of existence ever happened, we can just sort of guess that there has always been this thing that creation has done against God, and he knew he would suffer for it. And the very act of creation was an act of suffering for God. And that's something I just recently thought about, is God suffers the very moment he decides to create anything at all that is not himself, because he can't create himself, right? He can only create that which is finite and limited. Otherwise he wouldn't be God. He can't have any competitors or co-equals, but he does create us. And it seems like that given that this is, a working idea that's true, that God suffers when he creates, he knows what he's choosing. He knows exactly what door he's opening, and he's opening the door to the lion for the sake of what he creates, because he's not going to let the lion get us.
Yes. And yet in the book of Revelation, John hears a sound, and it sounds like a lion. And then he looks, and it's the lamb slain before the foundation of the world. That antinomy, where he has been broken, he has been divided, and through his division, he's also reunited. And that's that same division that he then, in breaking his body for us, this is my body broken for you, he reunites us into, so that we, having experienced division ourselves between our upper and lower, between our hemispheres, between our spiritual and carnal, between our, all of these different parts of us, he actually reintegrates by this very act, and also giving of the mystery.
Yeah, Christ does not raise without his body being his whole body. Right,
and yet still scarred.
Yes,
still bearing the marks of suffering.
And that's the glorification of God as God and man, is to bear the scars of what he has created, because he has chosen to suffer for it from the beginning.
Yes, and by his wounds we are healed. I do want to do one last quick reading from this book, which is
please.
It's going to be a Luke Thompson, it's going to be like the bat signal for Luke Thompson.
Oh boy! I just want to say, Sam,
Luke Thompson, you're with us now. Okay,
that's it.
I'm just developing a little jingle for Luke.
Yeah.
Before you do that, Sam, I'm going to listen in the background, but I do need to run. I got to get back to work. So thank you guys for your time, Rigel, Sam.
Man,
have a great rest of your day.
It's so good to just have you on here. I want to get to know you more too. Yeah. So
I'm open for that. Both of you. Thank you.
Cool.
All right. So
I read something, Sam.
I know sometimes these longer passages are a little tough. I know, so I'm not going to.
We have 10 minutes till I have to go. So
it's not that long. You mentioned before your own, sometimes you have to see it to process it. And I don't like being a bad guest coming in here and just reading a bunch of text and you're I have to come back later for that one. But
well, I'm going to take notes while you're reading.
Okay. because I like the word pictures. I do better with like
Yeah.
imagery, like lamb slaying. That makes sense to me. But
Yeah.
I know Luke is just like, he's like, give me these words. So,
Yeah.
anyways, my consciousness accepts still another antinomy. The antinomy. Sorry, Dan just said, hey. Hey, Dan. It's good to hear from you.
Dan! Nice to see you. What's up, y'all? Don't know if I'll be able to join, but want to at least say hi. Dan,
Yeah.
you're with us. All right. Keep
Okay.
reading, Sam. Antinomy.
My consciousness accepts still another antinomy, the antinomy of the unique and the multiple, or the one and the many. In distinction from all the mystics of the one, like India, Plotinus, and Eckhart, I confess a monopluralism, i.e., I accept both metaphysically and mystically not only the one, but a substantial plurality. The revelation in one God of a permanent cosmic plurality, a multitude of eternal individualities. The cosmic plurality is an enriching revelation of God, God's development. This consciousness leads to a metaphysical and mystical personalism, to the revelation of the ego. Boom!
Boom!
He wrote that in the early 1900s, and Luke's over here just like, it's personalism, y'all. And I'm like, he's got a nose on him, man. Like, personalism, that's where
Yeah.
it's at. Like,
Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to share something on my screen.
okay.
So I made this like little, okay, so I created a sign up form for people to like join my little emaily list. You know, you're on the list, Sam. You get the little email updates, but if it ever gets too annoying, you can always be like, Raj, I'm just going to like find you when I find you. So just let me know. While I do that, let me just throw in the sign up instructions here in the chat, just for folks, you know, sign up for info. But what I was going to say is when I was creating this form, I needed like a header image. So I created an image, super just last minute basic. And I'm just going to share this image and see if it kind of connects to what we're talking about. Okay, so here's the Rigel image in the cosmic navel. This is like all of my theology explained in like little squiggles. Okay, so I think of the antinomy, the paradox, the paradox as this like upward line and this kind of cyclical line over my left side of the screen, right? So you have kind of these two, it's like the poetry of opposites, right? But then on the right side of the screen, you see this upward ascending spiral that may or may not be coming out of my rear end.
Like a devil's tail.
Yes, but it is that metabolism of the opposites through. It is coming out of my rear end. Oh my God, it's metabolizing through my personhood, turns this directionality and cyclicality into the spirals that are everywhere. Freaking spirals, man. Oh my God. Okay, this is ridiculous.
No, it's like so ridiculous because it is connected. Like, I had to, after Midwestern, I was just like, what? I had to like get some, like, it took me like a week to come down. Like,
it took me a week too.
Like, I'm like getting back up a little bit. I'm like, that was so great. Shouldn't we do that? And I'm like, no, because then you have to like get back down again. So maybe like, but no, that's exactly, you just encapsulated all things, like the symbols of everything. Like, you know, there's just like a point where you're just like, okay, I shut my mouth. Let me, you know, I have heard of God with my ears, and, you know, I haven't seen him, but it's like I'm seeing these very close, rich energies of God. I need to just, like when I talked with Joy, I don't know if you met Joy.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Beautiful in every way. And she was just like, I was like, what are you going to do tomorrow? You know, this Midwest race wrapping up. She just said to me, like, simply, I need to go worship. And I was like, oh, I need to do that too. Yeah. It's like when the kid gives you the right answer. This happens with the
Yeah.
kid too. You're like, oh yeah, they're seeing things rightly, and I was just like, I'm gonna nerd out about this stuff with my friends. Like, no,
I know.
like, I need to worship.
Like, I need a journal and like write a blog post and like fix something with this new knowledge.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's right.
Oh, Sam, so good to see your dang face.
Advice.
Yeah. Any other last? Yes, Elizabeth Oldfield. I follow you. Oh, great. So good. I'm gonna go get my child from school.
Do it.
I'll see you on the next cyclical, transcendental spiral process.
Perfect.
Oh,
That's it. Yeah.
Yep.
There it is, Cody. Because a navel is spirally. Is that why you're saying navel?
Yeah, I didn't even think
Spiral?
about that. No, I didn't. Oh God. Okay, now I have to label my spiral at like this is the navel. Oh my God, Sam, this is just full circle, full spiral.
Yeah. Next time at the navel.
Next time at the navel. All right, dude. That you just did something there that I'm gonna be chewing on.
Okay.
All right, my brother.
Be well.
Peace. Be
Pleasure.
well.
Bye.